Hello, everybody, and welcome to another week of discussion about season 2 of Doctor Who. Now, this week, following the confusion and kerfuffle of last week where Sean was here, there, everywhere, we went, you know what, Sean, you can just go away this week. So this week I have a special guest joining me to talk about the Interstellar Song Contest. The one, the only, Christel Dee. Thank you for joining me, Christel.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's all very exciting, isn't it? Lots to talk about.
Incredibly. Oh my goodness. So much to unpack.
I almost feel like this was the perfect episode for you to join me as well, because I know you've had your theories.
I have had my theories, yes. Yes.
Absolutely. So we are going to talk about the elephant in the room a little bit later down the line. But first of all, obviously everybody watching hopefully will have seen my ups and downs review already of this episode. And if you haven't, maybe go and do that first, because we're not going to get too much into my nitty-gritty. I want to hear what Christel thinks about the episode. So before we get into the deeper things, just give me your overall thoughts of this week's episode.
Oh, honestly, this series as a whole has been absolutely incredible. So it's been really hard to pick favourites, but I kind of want to say that this episode might just top it for me.
Ooh.
In terms of best episode of the season. And I'll tell you why. I think it's just because it was so fun, so exciting in terms of the concept, but also it had these moments of real kind of darkness and emotion, and some of the acting was just incredible. Obviously, we had those amazing cameos. We had return of a past companion, the original companion, and an amazing reveal at the end as well, which we'll get onto. So it packed in a lot, and I just loved it. I loved every aspect of it. It scratched a part of my brain that it was so camp. It was so fun. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Well, I feel like we've got a little bit of a spoiler there for Christel's ranking later on, but I'll be interested to see. No, that's okay. That's good. We like to hear those. It's interesting as well, though, because the rankings can be quite, it's very different depending on your views. I would say for the most part, myself and Sean have been pretty much on the same page mostly this season. But sometimes it kind of gets to the midway point and we can throw a little spanner in the works and we go, oh, really? You thought that? And it can be very interesting. So we'll get to that later on. But you have mentioned a return of the OG companion, and I feel like that's probably where we should start the deeper dive into this episode. Susan Foreman. It actually blew my mind. I mean, the thing is, right? So the last time we saw her on screen, technically, was Dimensions in Time. But if we really want to go, that was a charity special, and it's a lot of fun. If you haven't seen it, you should. But even before that, I mean, The Five Doctors is the last time Susan was on screen. That's 1983. And fans have been calling for her return ever since the show returned. And I think it was so unexpected, but so welcomed and so special that it just... I mean, Jo Martin last week was really brilliant to see her return. But this week, I feel like it was just... nobody saw it coming. And yet, I don't know about you, but I kind of did that thing where you know that meme where Leonardo DiCaprio is like pointing at the at the screen and you're just like, wait, hang on a second. There were no words. It was just felt so special to see Susan return.
Yeah, as you say, very unexpected. And for me, I went into this episode knowing that there probably would be a reveal of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
And all my attention was on that, really. So when Susan popped up, it really did catch me off guard. And it was a really nice way to slot her in there as well. I mean, as you say, she's not been in Doctor Who for a really long time. So I think she really deserves a comeback. A lot of the past companions have had a chance to come back. So it was a really nice way to bring her in. And I'll be really interested to see where it goes and whether she'll pop up again in the 2-part finale. I really hope she does, because she is such an important figure in Doctor Who. And Shooty's Doctor has mentioned Susan a few times. And I feel like there may be more to unpack there for him as a character as well. You know, he's obviously thinking about his past, and Susan is now appearing to him. So I'd love to see where this goes. I really hope we see her again.
I think that is the thing as well. It's kind of like, is this it? In which case, I mean, it was lovely to see her, but come on, give us a little bit more. If that's kind of it, it is a bit like, is that it? We've waited all this time for Susan to come back, and we're gonna get just that. I'm kind of on the fence. I'm like, I'm grateful that we did get that, but I feel like there should be more here. Like, if we don't see her in the following 2 episodes in some way, it's a
yeah. I think I'm kind of with you on that, in that I almost want her to have more of a role, because some of the other companions we've seen working for UNIT, and they've also covered a bit of their like they've caught us up on what they've been up to as well, and it just would be really nice, I think, for Susan to have a bit more to do, and also for us as a sort of audience and a fan base to sort of understand what her life has been like. We know that she's had a whole life that we've not seen, so it would be really nice to see her again and see what she's been up to, and see what the Doctor's relationship is like with her now as well. Now he's not like a grumpy old man.
Yeah, I mean, she literally says find me when she in those little flashes. She says find me. So if he doesn't find her, that's going to be the only other thought I did have is, obviously we have got the Rani, which we'll get to in a second, but I'm really hoping that this isn't some way of enticing the Doctor and it's not a trick in some way, because we kind of already had that with Sutek teasing Susan in season 1 with Susan Triad. So I kind of don't want us to go down the same route of Susan being teased and it actually not being Susan. I want to see that reunion.
Yeah, exactly. It might be that they're just setting something up for a future season. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion about Doctor Who's future and a lot of speculation. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're planting seeds for future seasons, because I think regardless of what happens, whether there's a delay or whether Disney decide to continue in partnership with the BBC, I think there will be a series of some sort, because I think it's something that the BBC would be really reluctant to let go of. So it might be that Susan doesn't appear this season, but it's left some breadcrumbs. It's laid the groundwork for Susan to come back in a more prominent role in future. So either way, there's hope there, isn't there?
Absolutely. And I think the best thing I think that came out of this is in the Unleashed episode that covered this episode, Carol Ann Ford spoke about how she has returned, what made it possible, and she credited it to the fans. Fans were asking for it, and she thinks that's part of the reason why. And that's great, the power the fans can have over something. It's just, why has it taken this long?
And also Carol Ann Ford meeting Russell at the Starbeast screening, which I was at as well. I was in the room.
You were in the room where it happened.
I actually witnessed Russell meeting Carol Ann Ford. So I actually witnessed that moment, which was kind of incredible. And then to see that pop up in Unleashed, and then for them to be like, oh yeah, like we then chatted about it and now I'm back in Doctor Who. I was like, yes. But also, as you say, the fan base have really, really wanted an appearance from Susan for such a long time as well. Yeah,
it is that question of why has it taken this long? You've had so many other people come back since then, and every season someone's like, come on, bring Susan back. And it's taken this long, but it's about time.
It's about damn time.
It is. So obviously we don't just have Susan returning in this episode. Let's just get to it, shall we? We also have the reveal of Mrs. Flood's true identity, and a kind of twist in that as well, but we have the Rani. Finally. Now, I know that you definitely had your theories, your suspicions about Mrs. Flood's identity, and I think I kind of did as well, but this... I don't know whether there was also a lot of unfortunate leaks this season. So I think there was a lot of people going into this episode kind of knowing where this might be going. But despite the fact that you kind of knew that was where it was going or had your suspicions, did that make a difference, or did it still just wow?
Honestly, firstly, I completely kept away from spoilers. I actually don't go out there looking for spoilers because I just think it ruins it. So I've completely left all of this up to my own suspicions, and I've theorized that she could be the Rani or like a sort of god of storytelling. And gradually throughout this season, as we've seen more and more stories that kind of cover the storytelling thing. So in Lux, we had the Doctor Who fans appearing, and we had that scene where the Doctor meets the Doctor Who fans, and it's very meta. But we also had a whole story which was about storytelling. So after that point, I thought, well, I actually don't know where. I don't think we're headed there, because I feel like we've covered it off. So that only really leads me to think she's a Time Lord of some sort because of the time travel thing.
Yeah.
And when she was at the end, I think at the end of the well, I felt like she was giving Time Lord vibes, to be honest. And, you know, immediately my mind goes to the Rani, really, because we've had a lot of appearances of the Master over the last few years, and the Rani hasn't had a sort of a comeback yet. So, and I love that character anyway, and I'm a big fan of 80s Doctor Who, especially Sylvester McCoy's era. And I love the character of the Rani, and you know, she's incredibly camp, and she's also very different from the Master in that she is more of a sort of weird scientist, mad scientist, loves experiments, less obsessed with the Doctor than the Master, and kind of more in her own head, and likes her little projects and things like that. So I'd be really keen to see what the experiment is here. But in terms of the big reveal, so I had my suspicions it'd be the Rani, but then when it actually happened, I filmed my reaction because I thought it'd be coming, and I realized it'd probably be in the sort of mid credits, because it got the credits rolled, and I thought, wait, what?
Yeah.
I thought there was going to be a Mrs. Flood reveal, and then it started. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to put the camera on, because I want to see, like, I don't know what to expect, and I do want to film my reaction, obviously to put it out on social and things like that, and it's when she starts regenerating, I was like, okay, she's a time lady. She says she's a time lady, and I was like, okay, but who is it? So I at that point I don't quite react in the way you think I would, because it says time lady. I'm like, I don't care who. It could be someone new.
Yeah.
For all we, it could be. I just thought maybe it's someone new. Then she bi-generates, and then it's like I was like, wait, what? Like, I'm literally like this in the video, so like my head is hurting, like I don't know what's going on. And I was like, who is it? Who is it? Who is it? And she goes, I am the Rani. And I was like, yes. Yes. And I don't know. I'm probably, maybe that reaction seems quite over the top to people, but for me, as someone who loves this show, it's these moments that really make it so special. You know, we've invested in this show for years and years as fans, some longer than others. It doesn't matter. It's not obviously not a competition, but, we followed this show through its ups and downs, and you get these moments where you're like, this is incredible. And I felt very excited, very overwhelmed, and just, amazed. And I can't wait to see where it all goes.
Yeah, it is interesting though. Obviously, maybe slightly a criticism of how this new era, this Disney era of Doctor Who was kind of marketed, because there has been a lot of people since this reveal commenting on our content actually not knowing who the Rani is, who Susan is, because this new era was kind of marketed as a jumping in point for new fans. And I guess if you look at it from that perspective, have they really been successful in that, in the way that we've had a lot of returning characters, returning villains, which is great for us fans who are familiar with that, but I guess newer fans are confused. I will say, depending on which way round these videos go out, there's either already a video up on the channel explaining who the Rani is, or it will be coming tomorrow, depending on which one goes out first. But we will be covering that for those fans who are a bit confused. I think because I had this inkling of the Rani being who Mrs. Flood was revealed to be, I did, maybe rather smartly, prepare myself. And before this season started, I went and watched The Mark of the Rani and Time and the Rani and Dimensions in Time. Whether I needed to watch Dimensions in Time, I'm not sure, but it was fun anyway. And I'm glad I did that because, I mean, it's no secret on this channel that I haven't seen all of Classic Who. I'll get there eventually, but I think it was beneficial to go and rewatch those stories so that I didn't get to the end of that episode on Saturday and have to cram a lot of Doctor Who into my Sunday in order to be able to talk about who the Rani was. It is interesting going back and watching those because you do start to spot clues that may have been put within Mrs. Flood's story or her characterization that unless you've watched those episodes recently or you know them really well, you might well have missed. I mean, the obvious one to me was the Rani taking on the role of Mel in Time and the Rani. She dresses up as Mel, and all through season 1 there was this whole theory that Mrs. Flood was dressing as the companions. And it's something that you kind of, everyone's going, oh, she's doing this, but I don't know that I saw anyone say, oh, well, the Rani did that when she pretended to be Mel. So it's interesting in kind of, when you look at it in hindsight, that you see those clues that maybe were there, but everyone overlooked.
Yeah, I think so. 2 things on that. I think with the Rani not being, with fans not necessarily being familiar with Rani, I think it's okay because when I first discovered Doctor Who and the Master came back, obviously I didn't know who the Master was. I hadn't seen any classic Doctor Who at that point. But when Derek Jacobi's character, he remembers himself and he remembers who he was, he becomes the Master. It is sort of all explained in the episode to a certain extent. You sort of understand that this is the Doctor later explains who he is. There's that kind of scene where they're eating chips and they, it's sort of covered.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you need to see the previous stories featuring the Rani to understand what's going to happen in the next 2. If you want to go back and watch them and look for clues, it is quite fun because you can kind of start to think about what sorts of characters she might be like in this incarnation. But I don't think it's actually too necessary. I think where we've had moments in Doctor Who like that where it's been less it's been handled less well is in series 9, with Peter Capaldi, where the child Davros is there in the pre-credits and he goes, "I'm Davros," and like there's a shot of the Doctor's face, it's just like, and as an audience, if you don't know who Davros is, you're left to sort of be like, well, who's Davros? What's the significance here?
Yeah.
Whereas I think both Sutek and the Sutek reveal and the Rani, I don't think you need to know who they are. And I think with Susan, we have had some explanation in previous episodes where the Doctor said, I was a grandfather once, and Susan her name was. So I don't think that that's going to be too out of the blue. I can understand why people might be confused. Google is your friend. Like, I'm not being funny, but like, quick Google search. I'm watching Star Wars at the moment, going through all of the extended media now, and I have like quite a lot of confusion about timelines and stuff. I just Google it and I just put it together in my head because I don't feel like I'm owed an explanation like from the media all the time. I feel like you've got to do the work a bit sometimes as a viewer.
Mm-hmm.
Do your research. The only other thing I want to say about the Rani now is we've got these 2 characters. We've got the Rani, the definitive article,
mm-hmm.
And we've also got Mrs. Flood. She's still Mrs. Flood.
Yeah.
And so I've got this theory about how when they bi-generated, I think the good side of the Rani has all gone into Mrs. Flood and the sort of evil side has all gone into the Rani. Because I think when Mrs. Flood was just when she was like, I don't know, Ruby's neighbour and things like that, like she seems to have quite a nice, friendly side, and I don't know how much of that is put on, but like when like she's in with Cherry and Sutek's dust is killing everyone, she's like, oh sorry tiny little woman, like she's not as evil as Missy. I think there's a good side, and what I'd be really interested to see is whether the Mrs. Flood character tries to undermine the Rani at some point, or whether she's vulnerable to the Doctor talking her out of doing it. Whereas I think we're going to get the Rani, the main Rani. It's going to be a bit more like Missy and a bit more cutthroat.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that?
See, I'm a little bit at the moment. I still am a bit like, is the Mrs. Flood that we've seen, not all of them, maybe the Mrs. Flood we've seen on Earth, maybe a version of the character we haven't actually seen yet. Because obviously they've got to get back to Earth at some point, and presumably whatever their plan is has got to be kind of worked towards before the Earth explodes. So, I mean, in my mind, I'm like, I think when we saw her at the end of the well, to me, that kind of felt like the first time the Rani had realised the Doctor was there, was using a Vindicator. And I kind of feel like the neighbourly Mrs. Flood scenes, she hasn't done that yet. I don't know, that kind of subordinate that she is at this point is going to now go back and lay the groundwork to lure the Doctor. And maybe that's her task set from the Rani, is giving Mrs. Flood this task to go and worm her way into the world of the Doctor somehow. I don't know. Something tells me that, the Mrs. Flood we've seen on Earth is not, I think we're seeing her out of sequence.
Yes.
That's what I think's definitely happened. And I do have a theory. It's a crazy theory and there may be nothing to it, but I do have a theory that somehow this new the Rani is Belinda's mum.
Ooh.
Because we've had mention of Belinda's parents, and I feel like there must be relevance, otherwise why have we been told these important points about Belinda, or about her family in particular? Also, this is just a really wild speculation thing where I like to kind of really get my tinfoil hat on. But obviously we have the Rani, and Belinda's surname is Chandra, and the only other character that we know, we have Rani Chandra. And I kind of have this weird, like, there must be a connection there somewhere. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, so we had Rani Chandra, so we've got the Rani. Chandra is Belinda's surname, so what if the Rani is Belinda's mum somehow? Or I don't know, I just feel like there's a connection somewhere. There must be, surely.
Or it's just Russell's
or he's just messing with us.
I think, or he's just forgotten. He like, or just can't think of any new names.
Just keep reusing the same ones. No one will notice. We notice these things, Russell. This is what we dedicate our lives to. He might not have even realised until some fan has commented, being like, "Oh, did you know?" Knowing him, he'd go back and go, "Yeah, I did that on purpose." Shit, yeah, exactly. I did that on purpose. Exactly. What else have we got in this episode? We had another moment, probably the strongest moment of the Doctor getting very angry. We were waiting for the Doctor to start getting a bit more angry. I was getting a little bit fed up with this kind of softer side. Not that I didn't have a problem with the Doctor being a little bit softer, but I think it was just plateauing at the same thing, and I was waiting for some growth. This week, we had that, what I feel like is the Doctor I grew up with, where he has moments where he actually does go a bit too far. When I say a bit, he maybe goes way too far. But it almost made me think of, do you know in The Runaway Bride where Ten has to be stopped by Donna from going too far and needing someone? And that's kind of the role that Susan filled in his mind in this moment. And I've seen a lot of kind of debate about whether this was right for this Doctor, whether he should have done that, whether... For me, I think I was like, finally, this is what I've been waiting for. You feel like the Doctor now. As a Doctor that's in touch with his emotions, that doesn't just mean sadness. That means he can also be very volatile in terms of getting angry. And there's obviously this trigger for that anger where he draws this connection between the loss of his people and the loss of 3 trillion people. So I think for me, it worked really well and was really fitting for the character. But I would be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so we had that moment where the Doctor, for me, it was like the sort of Time Lord victorious. You know, it was really giving David Tennant, as you said, Runaway Bride. And I felt like it was very fitting, really, for the Doctor to have a moment like this, because at the end of the day, the Doctor is an alien. The Doctor isn't human. And the Doctor's lived an incredibly long life and has gone through a lot of suffering. And for me as a viewer, it's just more interesting to have these moments where the Doctor breaks. And one of my favourite Stephen Moffat quotes, I think it was in a panel, he says that he's comparing Doctor Who to Sherlock Holmes, and he says that the Doctor is a god trying to be human, and Sherlock is a human trying to be God. And that's how I think of the Doctor. The Doctor really rejects who he is, runs away from Time Lord society, doesn't want to be this pompous, angry, like corrupt person. He just wants to go and explore the universe and is fascinated with humans. And I think almost like wants to play at being one in some ways. But there are going to be these moments naturally where the Doctor cracks. And I think it's important that we show that, because otherwise, like you say, it is just going to be one note. And so I did enjoy it. And I know that, I know that people have different views on this and different thoughts on this, but for me, I think it does work. I think it is justified. And we did have that moment in the episode where Susan is able to pull him out of it. So yeah, it really worked for me. I really enjoyed seeing a different side to the Doctor, to be honest. And I think we've got some interesting dynamics going on really here, because we've got Belinda almost being quite wary of the Doctor, even from the beginning, from the outset, not very trusting. And now she's seen this moment where he has, lost his shit, basically, and gone a bit overboard. And I just think it creates this interesting friction, rather than the Doctor being wonderful all the time, the companion just being completely swept away by it. I just think that's really boring.
Yeah.
So I'm really enjoying the dynamics here, and where things are headed in terms of this Doctor's growth. And I really do hope we see a bit more sort of character development there with him. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens in the season finale as well. Because it would be weird to just suddenly put that to bed now Susan's turned up.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's almost been done on purpose. The fact that Belinda hasn't seen this side of the character almost makes us feel like maybe this softer side has been more intentional than we initially thought, to then make this break more significant. And is it going to be significant in moving into the finale? I have seen a couple of people suggesting that the scene would have been better if, instead of Belinda witnessing the Doctor doing this to Kid, instead of going and hugging him, actually backing away from him and almost being like, I don't trust you. What did you just do? And I do feel like that could have been a really interesting way for the scene to have gone, rather than her instantly comforting him. Because as you say, this kind of friction is a much more interesting storyline to follow. So rather than her just kind of almost forgiving him and just being like, you're wonderful. Have I ever told you that? It's like, you scared me. Like, you're dangerous. I think that could have been maybe a good addition to the scene. So the other thing that I'm curious about, because obviously going into this episode, there was a lot of hype about it being a Eurovision focused episode, or set around the Eurovision Song Contest. And I think there was a lot of uncertainty about how musically it was going to be as an episode. Do you feel like the balance was right in this episode with regards to how much music was involved, and how was there too much, too little? What were your thoughts on the Eurovision element of the episode?
Yeah, so I feel like it was the perfect amount, because ultimately this episode is very story focused, as it should be. It's not really a story about the people on stage or the contest. It's more about the people who sort of band together behind the scenes in the end. And I actually think it's really good that they started the episode with the big bad thing happening, because when everyone goes up into the sky, when the sort of ceiling is all broken and stuff, right? So you've got this thing that happens at the very beginning of the episode, or quite early on in the episode, where it's implied that the thousands of spectators in the audience have died. At that point, we don't know that the Doctor's going to be able to save them, or that there's some sort of backup, or that they're just going to be frozen. We don't know that. So when that moment happened, I thought that was really shocking. And obviously from that moment on, it's predominantly about how they then kind of stop what's happening. And there's some really interesting things that happen. And then we get, after sort of the resolution, we do get that lovely song. I can't remember the name of the character, but
Cora.
is it Cora? Yeah, Cora She sings a song of her people, and I think it's incredibly touching and incredibly moving.
Mm.
And at that point in the episode, it really hits home what this episode really is about. And I mean, there's so much social commentary in this episode, which could be applied to so many different situations. Whether that's a situation in our present day, or you could look back through history, and there have been things, like just look at colonialism and the British Empire, going into places, taking what's on the land and kind of enslaving the people. I mean, like, you can apply it to so many different things, and fundamentally, yeah, I mean, this is a story about these poor people who have had their homes destroyed by capitalism and greediness, and so it's an incredibly touching moment, and I think it is earned. I think it is, and it is really beautiful. And yeah, it wasn't too much focus on Eurovision, to be honest. I thought the Ryland stuff as well, and Graham Norton, was a lovely touch. And a highlight for me has to be Dugadoo.
I'm glad you said it, because if you didn't, I would.
Dugadoo. And I just think it's so funny, like this episode has got so many dark moments sort of like sandwiched together with kind of like quite sort of light moments. And I guess it's sort of like that sort of dark comedy almost. Belinda's literally just seen like thousands of people kind of maybe killed, I mean, as far as she knows. And then she's like, literally, she thinks the doctor's dead. She's literally like stranded in the year 2900 and something, and Dugadoo is playing in the background, and it's like, it's just a great moment, really. So yeah, I mean, I think if we had any more focus on the acts, I think it just wouldn't have been, it would have been an episode about the acts, on stage, which is not what it was about, really. So
I'm really glad that you actually mentioned the way that this episode can be read in different ways. Because I read it in a certain way, and I've had a lot of people kind of suggesting that I've completely missed the point of the episode. But I think the point of this episode is that this is a story that's presented in such a way that you can read it in different ways, and you're not right or wrong for seeing one thing in it or seeing something different in it. Because I think we spoke when I was on your channel talking about Lucky Day, but just in general, I think an episode where there is commentary that can be pulled apart in so many different layers and can be seen at face value for what it is in the episode, or you can draw from your personal experiences to kind of connect to it in whatever way feels the most relative to you. I think that's so much better than it being so on the nose that you have only one thing that you have to think or feel with regards to what's being said to you. I think it's important that you feel a connection to it, but you feel the connection to it based on your experiences and what you take from it. So I think this is one of those stories where the commentary was embedded within the story incredibly well, as opposed to being so on the nose that you don't really have a chance to make your own decisions about what you're witnessing. So I think that was handled really, really well there. So I'm glad you mentioned that as well.
You can interpret it how you like, and I know we've spoken before about when you came on one of my reviews, and we talked about how sometimes social commentary in Doctor Who can be a bit more on the nose, as you say, and sort of doesn't leave opportunities for you to have your own interpretation. And I think what this episode did really well, as does lots of other episodes of Doctor Who, to be honest, is it's got the social commentary in there, but it can be applied to so many different situations, which I think is good. And I would be interested to see if Juno did go into this with a particular scenario in mind, but maybe she didn't. And yeah, I mean, it's a tale as old as time. Let's just say that it's a tale as old as time, and I think that's what is so shocking in some ways. Is in the year 2900, nothing's changed, and the thing that is dominating is power. People with power equals money. Money equals power. So obviously, the corporations have the power, and the people who are suffering are the people who haven't got anything. And yeah, that's what it's about fundamentally.
What's also really nice though is that you also see through this that maybe not what is the truth, but what should be the truth is that also music is power, art is power, and Cora's song is giving power to giving a voice to all those people who didn't have one. And I love that kind of commentary that even in a song in a language you don't understand, you can feel the emotion of that. And I think that idea of art being a universal language, because you don't need to understand necessarily what's being said to interpret what's being said. So I think that was, I think this particular episode handled it much better than previous ones have. I think it was done really, really well. And as you say, I think it's the point is that you can read it in different ways. So for all those people telling me that I missed the point, I didn't miss the point. I just read my own interpretation of what was being fed to me. It wasn't right or wrong. It is what it is. You can read it however you are relating to the story. So I think that was done very, very well. Okay. The time has come to get to our season 2 ranking. Now, obviously, usually myself and Sean will have done this every week, so we've built up our ranking. But as my special guest this week, we don't know any of your order of the episodes this week. So if we start at the bottom at number 6 and work our way up, please, Christel, can you give us your ranking so far of season 2?
Okay, cool. So I just want to say this is my ranking based on my personal enjoyment, not objectively what I think is like a better or more well-written episode. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very personal to me. So in number 6, sixth place, it's going to have to be Lucky Day.
Ooh,
and that's not to say it was a bad episode or I didn't enjoy it. I just didn't enjoy it as much as the others. Again, this was a really, really difficult call, but I did. I put Story in the Engine 5th place. I really, really loved what it did, and I loved the storyline. But when I compare that to some of the other episodes we've had this season, I feel like the other episodes have had slightly tighter storytelling, and they've also had more kind of exciting moments. So that's the only reason why that's in 5th place. But on first viewing, I absolutely love that episode. I think a lot of people might disagree with me on this one. I've rated the Robot Revolution probably more highly than other people would rank it. I've put it in 4th place just because I was absolutely blown away by its sort of energy. When season 2 started, I thought, wow, this is great. This story is so punchy. Visually, it's vibrant. It's kind of silly, but not in a kind of lame way, like Space Babies. So it's a slightly more clever and fun story as well. And the silliness I think really works. So that's kind of why I put it there. Now my top 3, it's been so hard to rank the top 3, and so basically in 3rd place, and I might get some comments, I've put The Well. I think The Well is the equivalent of Boom for season 1, in that it is dark episode, quite kind of scary as well. And I know a lot of people absolutely loved it, but for me personally as a fan, I didn't really feel like we needed the sequel to Midnight. And I also didn't like the moments in the episode where we saw quite a lot of the creature. There's a lot of people who I've put my opinions out there, and people have said, oh, we don't see the creature, it's just flashes. But that's enough for me. I mean, that's too much for me. Even what we do see, the black flashes, that's still too much for me. So personally, I think the what made Midnight so clever was the fact we don't see the creature at all. So I just it may have earned 1st place had it not shown the creature a bit, but it's had to go in 3rd place, I'm afraid. And then the top 2, it's obviously it's a toss between Lux and the Interstellar Song Contest, and both of which I've enjoyed. And the reason why the Interstellar Song Contest gets 1st place and Lux is going to get 2nd place is only because the Interstellar Song Contest kind of trumps Lux, because it's got Susan and it's got the Rani. And there has to be a 1st place. In terms of enjoyment, I would say an Interstellar Song Contest has been like the one where I've been like, amazing. So that's my ranking.
Interesting. So myself and Sean have pretty much been on the same page throughout. I think maybe last week is where it started to change slightly. But compared, myself and you compared, very different.
Yes.
Very different. So at the bottom for me, I have the Robot Revolution. Just as you say, something's got to go at the bottom. So for me, the Robot Revolution takes bottom spot. And I think that the Interstellar Song Contest comes in at 5th place for me. Controversial.
Yeah.
I think really it comes down to if you took out Susan and the Rani, which are, you know, the great parts of the episode, but I think without those big reveals, that kind of like fan service moments, the rest of the episode for me is enjoyable, but just isn't as memorable as some of the other episodes we've seen this season. So just for that, I feel like obviously this season's ranking has been so difficult. I found this incredibly hard. And then I think I have Danny will remind me because I've forgotten, it's been 6 weeks. But I think then it goes Lux, Lucky Day, The Story in the Engine, and The Well. I'm pretty sure that's it. I know The Well is at the top.
So you've put The Well. Yeah, I think your ranking reflects, I think, fandom more broadly. Like some of the other rankings I've seen have said The Well. They've said The Well has been their favourite, and The Robot Revolution their least favourite.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, I spoke about this a bit last week. I think for me, The Well was the first episode where I really felt like this is like the Doctor Who I grew up watching. And I think that's why, for me, it takes the top spot, because there may have been a few moments that weren't quite right or didn't quite work. But for the most part, it was the first episode that I really felt like, oh, this is more like it. This is what I grew up watching. I didn't need it to be a midnight sequel, but even without that element, I still think just the episode itself, the darker tone, was what I'd been waiting for. So that's why, for me, The Well takes the top spot. But we do have 2 more episodes left. Now, usually we'd have a quick discussion about the Next Time trailer, but there was not a Next Time trailer this week for Wish World. There was a longer than usual clip released in the Unleashed episode this week. Basically, that clip tells us that Conrad is back, and he's telling a story about how the Doctor and the Rani were once enemies, but she thinks that they could actually be good friends. So I think that's going to be very, very interesting. I think the biggest mystery that I have at the moment is obviously revolving around the Unholy Trinity. Now, it's been confirmed that Conrad is part of that, and both versions of the Rani count as one member of the Unholy Trinity. So we still have one member of this Trinity that we don't know who it is. Obviously, have we all come to the conclusion now that it was the Rani who picked up the Master's tooth? Is that the Master stuck in the tooth? It's not the Master's tooth. It's the Master trapped in the Toymaker's tooth. But you get the point.
That's my, like, honestly, like, that's where my head goes immediately. It's to the Master's tooth, and I think it would be incredible if the Master is one of those 3. What a finale that would be. And who would play the Master?
Well, the thing is, right, we mentioned earlier about the premiere. Now, everyone at first thought, oh, Joe Martin was at the premiere, but that doesn't mean anything. And then Joe Martin turned up in an episode. You know who else was at the premiere? Michelle Gomez.
Oh, yes.
I've seen some theories.
That was kind of random.
Yeah, I've seen some theories that now we obviously know bi-generation is a thing, that maybe when Missy regenerated, it wasn't actually a regeneration, but it was a bi-generation, and that's how we then got the Sacha Dhawan Master, which would also explain how all of the progress made by Missy seems to have been completely overlooked when we had Sacha Dhawan's Master. I mean, I don't know. You and I were also at the premiere, and as far as I'm aware, we're not in any episodes either, so that theory is kind of quite thin. So
yeah. One thought I had was whether Conrad's body would be used as a vessel for the Master. So using the tooth, if you put the tooth in and like his I don't know, the Master's mind takes him over.
Interesting.
New body.
Oh, I like it. That's good.
But I didn't know that the Rani counted as one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Russell T Davies made a post over the weekend and confirmed that both versions of the Rani and Mrs. Flood only count as one part of the Trinity, so there's actually still someone left to be.
Unholy Trinity, the Rani, the Master, and
I think Conrad is one of them. So
I think Conrad might be the Master with the tooth in.
Right,
and
yeah.
The third one, It's probably going to be another Time Lord, or it might be someone. Can you imagine if it's someone like Rassilon, or can you imagine if it's someone uh like Omega? Like I think like that's one of the ones that's been floating around. Um,
Yeah, that
but I
person.
feel like that's almost like too niche.
What if it's the Doctor? What if the Doctor is somehow the third member? Like, I have seen some
Oh.
theories that his outburst in this episode is setting him on a path to maybe have the Valiard situation happening.
Hmm.
So, what if the big thing of this season is that the Rani is trying to separate the Valiard from the Doctor? I don't know. I don't know. I honestly, this is one of those few times where I've actually gone into a finale and actually really don't know what the hell's going to happen. I just have
Yeah.
no idea. My guess was the Rani. Beyond that, I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and like I'm so confused by the massive dinosaurs and like the people in the bowler hats. It looks incredibly weird. It looks like some sort of alternate reality or sort of parallel world.
Maybe this, I mean, we've had all these theories that this whole season has been like a weird alternate reality. We've had the whole Mavity thing,
Yeah.
which also maybe they are trapped in some weird world. And also I'm also looking forward to, I assume this will happen, Mel and the Rani meeting once again.
Yes.
That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's going to be good.
Yeah, but we've got 2 more episodes, very exciting. And then I'm sure we'll have plenty of discussions about what our thoughts are on what actually eventually ends up happening. But yeah, I think that about sums up our thoughts on this episode. Thank you so much for joining me this week, so I didn't have to be all by myself.
That's all right. Thanks for having me.
Also, make sure everybody watching, if you haven't already, to go and watch the ups and downs for this week's episode. The Easter eggs will also be coming sometime this week. And as I mentioned, we will have a video covering who the Rani is, either already out or coming out tomorrow, depending on when this one goes out. But thank you very much. And we will see you next week. When I say we, I mean me and Sean. Sean will be back next week. But look after yourselves, and until Wish World, goodbye.